Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover the ongoing issue of the economic issue, of course, especially after the closed meetings behind doors in Soba of the cabinet of ministers for 3 days, after which they came up with some important decisions in efforts to alleviate or circumvent the collapse and to alleviate the hardships on the people, the citizens. Also, another event which was very pleasing and very encouraging to the country is the reaching the decision point of the HIPIC program, which will be covered by two gentlemen, very important gentlemen in this area. Especially we have from the Central Bank of Sudan, who is very much concerned about this issue of the HIPIC. Many people are a little bit confused about the HIPIC and its effect and what is exactly happening on. So we are glad to host in this episode there is Dr. Mustafa Muhammad Abdullah. Dr. Mustafa Muhammad Abdullah is the General Manager, General Directorate for Policies, Research and Statistics in the Central Bank of Sudan. Also, we have our friend, Dr. Samani Hanoun. He's a lecturer in economics and finance in many universities in Sudan here. Welcome, both of you, for being with us in this episode. I will start by our guest and our friend, Samani Hanoun. Samani, as everybody knows, that we noticed for the first time that closed meetings behind doors in Soba, isolated area in Khartoum, far from the downtown or the city center, and they spent 3 days isolated actually from the environment, even the mobile phones or everything. So after that they came up with some decisions. So can you tell us about what is new? Because people, they are saying that what came out of these closed meetings is a little bit below the expectations, or it's something which is could have been done without closed meeting for 3 days. This is actually a camp like the football team when it's preparing for a big match. They confine the players for 3, 4, 7 days, and they come to the match. So what is your comment on the meetings?
Thanks,
And the outcome
Sudan.
of the meeting.
Yeah, Sudan TV and especially Dialogue Horizon for this special invitation to join discussion on these hot issues, especially the closed meeting of the cabinet of ministry during the last weeks that focused mainly on or addressed the current problems of encounter economy in Sudan, and especially the economic tightness and the decision to continue subsidizing the basic needs for Sudanese people like food, bread, and other necessities in the economy. Also, the closed meeting addressed most of the current issue today, and it is a focus meeting, especially addressed the current hot issues to solve these problems and to find way out, because these problem represents sources for political congestion in the country, and they want to relax the position, especially meeting held before June 30, the date of the demonstrations by the opposition. So the meeting addressed most of the hot issues and also create or provided some new solution to the stagnant problem in the economy. And they also outline most of the strategies and programs that to be used by government in order to increase social fund that to support vulnerable group in the economy and
Okay,
the poor group.
I will come to this.
Yeah,
Okay, this is very good. This is very important because
yeah.
we want this episode. We want people to follow closely what you are going to say. So we will try to give them short doses,
Yeah.
small doses, so that they can swallow it.
Yeah.
But because if I will come back to this point, this is a very important point. But I will go to Dr. Mustafa to ask him. You mentioned one of the things which decisions that they came out with a decision to give a grant to grant the public sector or the employees 10 billion pounds or 10 trillion on the old currency, so 10 billion. So people are asking, you are the Central Bank of Sudan in the research, statistics, and you know almost everything. Do you think this will lead to printing new money or borrowing from the banking system, or what is your comment on this 10 billion pounds?
I think as far as the meeting is concerned, this is just a retreat where we see the decisions, as my colleague had mentioned. It is a coordinated policy making. So we see various economic sector ministers discussing the issues to assess first the 6 months performance of the government, and then to find a roadmap for the next 6 months. What are the policies to be addressed, and what are the coordination needed between various ministries. So the issue related to raise the wage bill by 10 billion Sudanese SDG, I think what's important is, let us ask the question, where are the resources? If there are resources to meet such a decision, it's well and good. The only concern we are thinking of is the implications of such a decision in terms of inflationary pressure, in terms of exchange rate stability. So if in the budget there are some flows, actually part and parcel of the grants from abroad, the local counterpart will be availed to the Ministry of Finance to meet such requirement. Whereas the foreign receipt by the central bank will actually help building the foreign exchange reserves. So I think the idea is very simple. If we are not going to increase money growth in the economy, this is well and good. So we are asking, where are the resources? If the resources are part of the inflows that come after the decision point, mainly as a budget support from the international financial institutions. This is actually a good idea to meet some of, but the ultimate objective, I think, of the meeting is to curb down inflation and to reduce exchange rate volatility. So I think back to the meeting, the decisions need to be coordinated. And we are looking forward to see what we can see, a matrix of the role of various ministers. For example, the Ministry of Foreign Trade, the Ministry of Industry, the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank, and all the stakeholders. What are the roles needed to maintain the objectives of the economic policies throughout the coming 6 months? So this is the actual objectives needed here.
That is very good and very clear, Dr. Mustafa. But if we go to Dr. Mani, now you heard Dr. Mustafa, Mustafa Abdullah, about and he's right in the middle of the monetary, or the monetary actually, because Bank of Sudan, not the financing is the Minister of Finance, but this is they are concerned with the money. He's saying that it is a balance.
Yeah, for
If it is
resources.
coming,
Yeah.
if I understood him well,
Yes.
if it is coming through the aid coming from outside, there should be no problem because the Bank of Sudan can increase its reserve, foreign money reserve, and can give it to
I can
what is
see,
the
yeah,
equation here?
from other point of view, the government tend to take decision before June 30 demonstrations in order to relieve congestions or political congestion among revolution makers. And this is one of political objective of increasing salary. And I think there is no justification. Again, we come back to the vicious circle. We increase salary, and inflation will increase, and again they will ask to increase it. This is
But
an endless.
let me interrupt because what Dr. Mustafa said is that
Yeah,
we put it very clear that if,
Yeah.
and this could have been the case,
yeah,
if the money is coming,
Yes.
so it is just a transfer
Yeah.
to local currency
yeah,
from
Foreign-
money coming from outside.
yeah. To the local.
Otherwise, if it is not coming, he is saying it is not a good idea. In this case,
my position is very clear. We don't need to increase money growth in the economy. Why? Because we are targeting to reduce inflation. So if sources of our funding of such a decision is made by foreign grants, it's okay, because it will not have that, it will not jeopardize the efforts of the central banks to maintain macroeconomic stability. In this respect, I think the issue of the wage bill, if it is accommodated within the fiscal framework, it is actually, it will not generate monetary expansion. But if it is just printing money, this is, yes, this is a catastrophe.
okay, what is your comment on
I
this?
think
You
again,
agree with him, I
yes,
think?
yeah, definitely. As an economist, you need to reduce inflation in the economy. Increasing wages, this is an endless marathon. You increase wages and inflation will increase in the market, and again you increase inflation, so an endless story. I think the decision to take or to increase inflation mainly motivated by political objective rather than economic objective. If they were economic, they have to coordinate with the central bank and Minister of Finance. And definitely the target of this institution to reduce inflation in the economy, not to increase inflation. Okay. So why the cabinet or the Minister of the Prime Ministers promise people to increase salaries? And again, why the Prime Minister increase salary? Because we ask about the performance of public sectors. In order, they want to reward them against success. This is failed public sectors. I described it many times. So we reward the peoples against failure. So why we increase salary? Before Al-Badawi also increased the salaries in the economy and resulted in the, that catastrophic end. The inflation hit unprecedented level in the economy without increasing performance in the economy. All, even the employees, they get more.
Is this ridiculous? The inflation now, 300. Is it true?
400 is.
Recorded inflation rate, 379%. And actually, this can also be related, actually, to the budget bill raised. You know, we have raised the wages about 569% from Al-Badawi ministry as at that time. So the implications of that has what we call it in economics time lag effect. So the money created at that time, the money gross at that time, is actually exacerbating all the efforts of macroeconomic stability. So this is actually generated from that source of money growth. So I agree with you.
Yes, what I just want to tell that the cost of increasing salaries more than gains in economics term. So once you increase salary for only employees of public sector without improving performance, that would result in increasing prices in the whole economy. And the cost of increasing inflation, if you calculate it in this term, you will find that the cost of increasing salaries more than gains in the economy. So from economic point of view, we cannot increase the salary, but we target to appreciate the value of national currency. through strategies in order to appreciate the value of Sudanese pound. And I think that is the most appropriate strategy. Now, one of the strategic mistakes, we are targeting to solve the outcomes and the problems. It is better to address the problem and to focus on appreciating value of national currency. We have to develop a strategy through using gold, through increasing production, through relaxing and liberalizing trade in order to appreciate the value of national currency, and that will help serve the interest of all Sudanese people equally.
So you agree that increasing the salaries, the government should be a little bit careful, and both of you are skeptical about accepting the idea of giving direct grants like this one, or the grants
Exactly. Moreover, but we are in a new era, because after June 30, with the decision point made by the IMF concerning the HIPC initiative, we are in a new era. Sudan is now eligible to flows of grants and what we can say loans at a concessional terms. So in this respect, we are in a new era. We really need to envisage our economic policies to address the issues more carefully, because after graduation from debt crisis, we don't want to go back to debt crisis, and actually we need to energize the economy. We need to create incentives in the economy so that the industrial sector, the agricultural sector, the mining sector, the activities will be boosted by economic policies. Therefore, what we think is that we need to accelerate economic growth. We need to create jobs and opportunities for the masses, and that is contradict the decisions to raise money growth at this time. So what we need right now is to reduce inflation and to maintain macroeconomic stability as a conducive, what we can say, prerequisite for accelerating economic growth.
That's very good. Okay, Dr. Hassan, this reminds me of something. I want to ask you about. Many people, they want to know something about the HIPC, about this. I consider it a landmark decision. Sudan reaching this decision point, as we all know that there are 2 points, decision point and completion point. It may be 3 years between the 2 points, but it is the start. Some people, the opponents, they are trying to underestimate, to undermine this achievement. I think it's a big achievement, reaching this decision point. As Dr. Mustafa said, now Sudan is qualified and eligible to rejoin the international monetary system. Can you tell us about the HIPC and about this event of reaching the landmark of the decision point? We successfully passed the point.
This is, I think, historical victory for the transitional period. The decision point reached by the government within a very short course of time represent one of the victory and the gains hunted from the transitional period. And I think this is why the opponent felt to have demonstrations in Khartoum, because this very great news and bullish news that back the national economy and again recover confidence on national economy resulted in some very optimistic climate in Sudan. So the decisions of the IMF and the World Bank to make or to let Sudan eligible for debt relief after the next 2 or 3 years, actually this will create conducive environment for inflow of foreign direct investment, and also will relax pressures on national currency, the volatilities in the foreign exchange rate, creating job seekers in the economy. This is, I think, one of the great achievement of the transitional period in Sudan. And this is why the opponent fails even to attract more supporters, and they track some from the state outside by bus or captured by dismantling committee in Khartoum. So they failed even to stand against the transitional government. I think this is one of the achievements of the
So the big,
government,
you believe the
and
big
yeah,
achievement.
definitely a great event.
Okay, okay, Dr. Mustafa, about this, that now you are right in the middle of this epic arena here. And definitely as Bank of Sudan, Central Bank of any country is very much worried about the external debts, about how to get about it and to avoid collapse due to this debt. That is why maybe the IMF and the World Bank raised this initiative in 1996. This initiative, the HIPC initiative, heavily indebted poor countries, was initiated in 1996, about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it included only about 39 countries,
Yeah.
not more than from the, they call them the least developed countries.
Yes.
LDCs. Sudan, unfortunately, is right in the middle of this list.
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us about, because people, as I said, not like Dr. Sammani Hanu, because he's an economist, he is aware of the advantage. It's a big achievement to the government, the judicial government.
Yeah.
What is the benefit? What are the benefits to the country by reaching this decision point of the HIPC initiative?
Yeah, you are right. There are actually 39 countries named from 1996 with the highly indebted poor countries initiative. And Sudan was one of the list throughout the decades. And up to now, with the enhanced HIPC 1999, and throughout the period, we have 37 countries already had passed through this initiative. Only Sudan and Eritrea are still lagging behind. Now the decision point includes Sudan by June 2021. This is really a great success. This is a historical victory as named by my colleague. Why? Because in Sudan, Sudan is facing a real debt distress. Why? Because debt sustainability analysis show us that Sudan, in terms of percentage of the debt services and the percentage of the present discounted value of the foreign loans to the GDP, the percentage of the foreign loans and the debt services to the government revenues, and the percentage to the exports of Sudanese exports, all these figures reflect that Sudan is actually has debt unsustainability.
Unsustainability.
Why? This is the reason why Sudan is included in the list, to be part of the 39 countries you have already mentioned.
Okay.
So some countries had reached the decision point very early. Like, for example, Chad had reached it 2001. But the completion point, we need to actually to clarify these points very carefully. The initiative has an entry point and a decision point and a completion point. But Chad had reached the completion point only 2015. After 14 years.
From the decision point.
You just have mentioned Sudan will reach that point at 3 years.
3
yeah?
years.
Who knows? If you are working very hard as a government, you will meet that target even after 1 hour, 1 year or 2 years.
Okay.
But if you fail to meet the requirements, the period will be extended. In fact, what's very important to mention here is that we have some countries already graduated from this initiative, but went back to debt distress. Many countries, of which Congo, Angola, and other countries, they went back to debt distress. What's needed from the government of Sudan is that we don't want to go back to debt distress. So this is what we call the enhanced credit tranche, which is a program with funding from the IMF and also with funding from other international financial institutions like the World Bank, IDA, and the African Development Bank. So what's important for this event is that we will receive about $2 billion as a grant from the World Bank through the IDA. And this actually will generate a lot of opportunities for the Sudan economy. Why? because there will be funding for many infrastructural projects, railways and many roads, airports, electricity, and some very mega projects in agriculture and even in the health sector and so on and so forth. So the receiving of these grants from this funding vis-a-vis the facility, as I name it, ECF facility, which is a facility from the IMF itself, mounted to 1.73 billion SDR, and it's valued at 2.2 US dollars, and maybe also exceeding that number. So we are talking about a flow. Part of it will go to the bridge finance by France. The residual part will go to a government budget support.
Okay.
And the other part will be for the central bank as a reserve or balance of payment support. So other sources also we will receive about 500 million US dollars throughout the coming 6 months without any conditionality from the World Bank. In addition to another 500 million US dollars, 2022, with specific targets and with specific requirements. And in addition to this, the country will be open for flows of foreign direct investment, as mentioned by my colleague. Why? Because now, let me clarify a very, very critical point here with the decision point made and the press release made by the IMF. There are about 23.5 billion US dollars is cancelled. But the residual, Sudan has about 56.6 billion US dollars as
This cancelled from where?
Loan.
Yes, I read it just 22, 23.
Yeah.
They already cancelled already from the
cancelled is 23.5.
from
But when you reach the completion point, there will be another cancellation, final cancellation, and the residual, the only loan will be available is just 6 billion US dollars. So now we already has relieved from part and through the decision point.
Okay.
But as a general rule, we don't want you to be relieved from debts and within 2 or 3 years and you come back and say, oh, sorry, we need another 5 billion years, we have another debt, yeah? So they made you a program, an economic program. In these economic programs, if you are very successful within these 3 years you have mentioned, it means you will maintain macroeconomic stability. Yeah, you will reduce inflation to a single digit, and you will reduce deficit financing. The government budget is estimated to be just 1% of the GDP the coming year, and this means much more fiscal discipline, which is a very important requirement for maintaining macroeconomic stability. And for the central bank, you will receive foreign exchange. It means you will be capable of addressing the exchange and managing the exchange rate throughout the coming years. This is a new era for Sudan. So this is an opportunity for you to accelerate economic growth, to maintain macroeconomic stability, but you also have to work very hard to make a coordination of fiscal and monetary policy, and you have to work very hard with the other line ministries how to receive these funds and what are the priorities for injection of this money, so that the masses of the society can now understand that the economy is actually prospering. So you have to work very hard.
So,
yes.
the challenge.
Yes.
That's very clear. Okay, wait, because I have to ask
central
a question. I'll ask you a very important question about now what Dr. Mustafa did is something very encouraging and very pleasing. I'm very happy. I myself very happy. That there is some, but as if he's saying that, he kept repeating that we have to do more internally. And you are also not only economist, but a little bit politically oriented. And you are one of the revolutionaries of So all of this to happen, this good news, as mentioned by Dr. Mustafa, And not only Dr. Mustafa, even the United Nations UNITAMS, they talk about internal affairs, sovereignty affairs. They are talking, so what can you tell without this atmosphere which is conducive to jump in a less than 3 years to the completion point?
Yeah.
What is your comment on the
Yeah.
now the fabric, the social fabric, the
Yeah.
political fabric is
Yeah.
very fragile.
Yeah.
Security and safety is very.
Yeah.
Nobody is prepared. Nobody will dare to come to
Yeah.
Sudan. There is this kind of fragile atmospheres in all directions.
Yeah, I think, let me just to project what will happen after 3 years. I think that Sudan will be qualified for debt relief and in the completion point after 3 years for package of reason. Let us go back to the history of the decision, that this decision taken within very short course of time, and that also what happened yesterday can be repeated in the future. One thing more, the fundamental news today, Sudan is a very rich country with huge resources, not other like other countries. So Sudan, within the 3 years, if they work with stability, political stability, and also they created one unified armed forces in the economy, they achieved the peace bill in the economy, they will be qualified for the completion point, definitely, because this is very rich country with very huge resources and definitely will play a very critical role in the international economy. So I think my own judgment that the Sudan will be qualified after 3 years for the debt relief totally, and that will create a new environment for economic hope in Sudan and a boom again in the Sudan, creating more jobs, stability in foreign exchange market, low level of inflation. We maintain very stable economy, and then also the prosperity of the masses of Sudanese people will increase. The backing now, the poverty in the economy represent big challenge to the government. And one of these challenges, the political instability. So in order to achieve the goal as prescribed by the international community, we need to unite. We need to work together. The political party, they shall have to stop opposing government every time. They have to work together because they are part of the revolutions and makers. So they have to work in line with the transitional government. Kizan should stop oppositions. Now who want to work in order
Everybody
to achieve the
opposing
goal?
everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So the armed forces also, they have to stick to the peace requirements, and they have to establish one unified armed forces in the economy in order to achieve the goal, and also to maintain stability in the economy, because we cannot attract foreign direct investment under highly insecure environment.
Definitely.
So we need to create one unified armed forces in the economy. We have a target only of 3 years. We want to achieve all these bills. No time. This is why we always condemn that the prime minister should work very hard. And the pass of decision, very slow, like crocodile, like a turtle. It takes more time. So, yeah, they have to work in hurry in order to achieve the file of the peace and to create one unified armed forces in the economy. And also we need to go in the political parties. They have to reform the political parties. Political parties, one of the root causes in Sudan. So we have to reform the political parties, and they have to prepare in order to satisfy the requirements of debt relief after 3 years. Because it's time, and we need crash plan in order to achieve this.
Yeah, that's very good. But this reminds me of a very important issue which is raised by or said by Dr. Mustafa. Okay. To reach, he said, I said 3 years. He said, Chad, the gap between decision and completion was 14 years. So it depends on the efforts exerted inside. So this is linked with increasing the production and productivity.
Yeah, of course.
If you increase the production and the productivity, so that you can increase the GDP, and the HIPIC, they have a comparison. I don't know exactly, I'm not an economist, but they have a comparison or a certain ratio between the debt and the GDP. If you increase the export and you increase your GDP, definitely you will go right in the direction of the relief. Can you elaborate on this, Dr.
Yeah.
Mustafa?
Even before the decision point, we had benchmarks, and we have indicative targets, and we have prior actions. within the program, which was called the SMP, Staff Monitor Program by the Right now, we have what we call ECF program. Yes, Enhanced Credit Tranche Program Facility for Economic Recovery. This program requires that, as you have mentioned, you have to work very hard to maintain macroeconomic stability. And this actually has a lot of requirements to make what we have already mentioned as a fiscal discipline, what we have already mentioned as to reduce inflation as a main target. And in this regard, I think what's important nationally for our economists here, we have to think of, we need to make a lot of legislatives and a lot of what we can say amendments of the regulations and the laws. Why? Because if you want to attract foreign investors, they consider what we call doing business indicators in Sudan. How they get credit, how they make cross-border trade, how they get electricity, how they initiate what we can say registry of a firm or a company. And all these processes requires what we call reforms, legal reforms, so that when they come, their rights are actually saved, and they find the environment is conducive for investment. And this means that the whole economy is energized by the inflows of foreign direct investment, and they are capable of generating profits, and they are able to transfer their profits abroad. This necessitates that the government should work very hard to amend the laws. What are these laws which will create this conducive environment for attracting investment and doing business indicators? In addition, the government should take the right decisions to resolve the fundamental discrepancies between revenues and expenses within the government budget, so to reduce the government budget. So this is the cabinet or the council of the ministry should work very hard to make sure that within the coming 3 years, if we want to meet that target, the completion point, we have to reduce this deficit and to oblige the central bank to maintain monetary stability. And this is related to this budgetary deficit. So if we made meet these targets, there are what we call targets for each 6 months within the program up to 2024. So if we work very hard to maintain these targets, and we have targets for each, we have what we call these benchmarks had been transferred to what we call continuous targets, and they are going to observe you. If you work very hard and you maintain the objectives, you will be relieved from 50 billion US dollars within these 3 months, 3 years. So this is very important. If you have this target, then you need to make legal reforms. You need to make policy, to change your policy orientation in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy mix. You need to change your trade policies. You need to change your investment policies. You need to change your exchange rate policies so that the whole community will see some results. Now the community is very concerned about inflation. Yeah. If you go to the market every day and if you have any observation about the prices in the market, you see prices are actually mounting. What we need is to reverse this trend. How? Through macroeconomic policies. So if macroeconomic policies were well designed, well prepared, and well implemented, executed, with the flows that come from abroad, as we already had mentioned, yeah, we can say there will be a successful story, and we will meet the target. We will be able to reach the completion point within these 3 years, or even shorter than that.
That's very cruel. Very okay. Can you add?
Just a comment on
Yes.
this is my message.
Very clear
Yeah.
message.
If we were planning to achieve the goals in the prescribed duration of time, my message should security forces. You have to work hard in peace, because success in achieving or relieving 50 billions of debt is not an easy mission.
It's not a joke, yes.
Yeah.
Something big.
The security forces should work hard in order to fulfill the requirement of peace, and especially creating one unified armed forces in country. The political party, and this is the most important, they have to stop opposition. You have to work with the government and support the government. And a special message to the revolution makers, Kandaka, revolutionaries, Shafata, you are required strongly to support the government, not to oppose the government. Because opposing government we will fail, all of us, and finally we will delay the debt relief and beyond the prescribed time. So if we were planning to achieve the goal according to the debt within very short course of time, like what happens during the decision point, let us work together, and we can do it if we were united.
If we are united, that's very, very important call, which enhances actually what Dr. Mustafa Abdullah, the director of the policies and statistics. This is a very important branch directorate, by the way, because their work nobody knows. They are not. They are under. They are behind the scene, but they are doing quite a big job. Now he's telling us that it is good that we can reach the point in less than 3 years. But depending on what you are saying, that people should rise tall above the differences of the small differences of the parties and the partisan differences and the personal interests. The country can circumvent this step and reach the completion point very soon. Because if
one important thing I think we have to mention is that within the program itself, there is a requirement, implementation of what we call poverty reduction strategy paper. This poverty reduction means that even within these 3 years, you are required to target the poor people, to reduce the burden of what we call the economic program on the lower stratifications of the society. So this is very, very important, that the government should work very hard, not just to have this very nice, very neat strategy paper. No, we have to implement this document, yes, within the program. So the masses will feel that, yeah, the things are improving. This is a very clear message. We talked about to create an environment for attracting investment, for business. Yeah, but we don't have to neglect that. The masses are waiting for you, because this very, what we can say, very hard program requires that the government should target the poor people with specific policies and procedures.
And this is part, as far as I know, the HIPIC also.
Yes.
Part of its recommendation that will consider what plans did the government do to alleviate or to reduce the poverty and bring people to below poverty line to 2 degrees.
Exactly. So they will ask you, how much have you implemented the program? Then they have indicators. They have benchmarks. They will make assessment. So if within 1 year you made a very good progress in this file, you reduce the incidence of this program on the poor people, the lower segment of the society, then they will report to the IMF and to the World Bank, yeah, Sudan is doing better in terms of poverty reduction strategy. So it is a requirement.
The requirement. That's very important.
So this is why our message to the poor people in Sudan: the government is working for your interest. Don't respond to call for demonstration.
Actually, I will ask
is
you
a special program.
I will ask you a very specific question about this. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the side effects, the adverse effect actually of removing the subsidies. I myself, I believe subsidies are distortion to any economy, because subsidies at large, definitely, which will include the rich and the people, that which we used to have it in the last 30 years, is something very detrimental and very bad to the economy. And actually it led to the distortion of the economy, because you have to target, as Dr. Mustafa said, you have to target the poor people. Okay, we have a program here. That's my question. Yeah. Why we have about $800 million, I think, this samarat,
Yeah.
which is a direct subsidy or directly set to the poor people.
Yeah.
Now, yes, family support program.
Yeah.
The government for 2 3 months, till now, people are not benefiting. The prime minister himself, he said, we only spent 15%. That's the prime minister, only 15% in 2 3 months. That's why people did not feel this fruits of this samarat.
Yeah, I think
What
this
is
is
the
one.
reason?
Yeah.
Why this?
They mentioned we asked many official, government officials, especially during workshop held by the commissions of the Samarat itself, and he mentioned that one reason is the technical reasons, especially technology problem. They failed to make connections with the beneficiaries in the economy. And I think what mentioned by Ibrahim Bakhet, our the ex general manager of information system, is absolutely correct, because he asked for technology requirements in order to register all beneficiaries in the economy and to transfer money through mobile in order to save time and effort of the government. But unfortunately, he was failed and finally was dismissed from his post, unfortunately. So Samarat, I think, very late and face a lot of administrative hurdle. And I think this is reflect the failure. If we were going on the same way, we will not be able to reach the poor people. And finally, we'll fail to reduce the poverty rate in the economy. Samarat should be accelerated by Ministry of Finance. Now, more than 6 months back, money was rushed to the accounts of the Ministry of Finance. Still now, only 15% of the target groups will receive money. So why it is delayed too much in the economy? That will harm the people, the poor people themselves. The government should work hard in order to reach this money, all the poor people around the countries, and also develop other programs like reducing subsidy. And as I mentioned, subsidy creates scarcity in the economy. This is one of the main problems. They create scarcity. When government subsidize any goods or service in the economy, that will create lines, will create a shortage of the service and a lack of service in market. So scarcity is a physical product for subsidy. We have to stop subsidy if we were planning and to increase abundance of goods and service in market, like what happened today when we liberalize the prices of fuel. The fuel is available in all petrol stations, and now people, they can, although it is very expensive, but people can access it at any time. So removing subsidy is a must if we were planning to recover the economy. What else? I strongly recommend we have to go ahead in liberalizing the economy, liberalizing trade, investment, and also making homogeneous monetary and fiscal policy, as mentioned by my colleagues. So if we were planning to achieve these strategic goals, we have to satisfy all the requirements of the liberal economy. And we have to stop the pro-socialist paradigm, which is available in the December Revolution government today, because some pro-socialists are against this program, and especially in the two leading institutions, Central Bank and the Ministry of Finance. They have to work in line with the liberal economy in order to achieve the goals, and also to relieve about $50 billion at the end of the
If
period.
we work hard, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very good. Okay, Dr. Mustafa Muhammad Abdullah, and you are in the Director General of the General Directorate in the Central Bank of Sudan, CBOS. It's a very important bank. And you are taking care of the policies, researches, and the statistics. Can you tell us about the philosophy or what system, economic system, our government now is adopting? Is it capitalist, or is it what type of economic systems now we are adopting?
I think,
Well, your comment, is it good or bad, or?
okay, let me just explain the differences first between a capitalist system, and a socialist system, and even Islamic system, and other systems. Right now, most of the countries worldwide are adopting what we call a mixed economy. So we have some features of a market system, as mentioned by my colleague here, liberalized economy. Also, we have some symptoms of government intervention in the economy, which is one of the signals of a socialist system. So let me clarify. We are actually on the move toward role of statist, role of the state, but directed or oriented by the market. So what we can say, our national economy right now is a mixed economy.
Mixed economy.
Yes, and we are adopting a lot of policy measures in this framework. And I think what we need is actually to give, we always have to ask this question. Do our economic system actually encourage farmers to produce in the agricultural sector? Do our system is allowing factories in the industrial sector to work and generate profits and raise capital accumulation and so on and so forth? Do our policies actually expand our what we can say transportation sector and helps other services in the economy? The national economy that we are now addressing requires a lot of reforms so that we feel our economic policies are actually directed towards the productive sectors. That we see the agricultural sector is reformed, people are generating income from the sector and living in and their living standards improving. And we see the industrial sector, we see the manufacturing sector capable of attracting investors. Money. And we see the mining sector prospering and gold exploration expanded and services.
That's
yes.
ideal.
That's what we are looking for.
That is very
so
ideal.
Let me just mention one word.
Okay.
Deng Xiaoping, when he came to power in China in 1997, and he addressed the people, they asked him, are you going to be a socialist country or are you going to be a capitalist country and so on? And we know Deng Xiaoping policies is what we call a new reforms to the system, which brought up to now what we call China economic reforms.
Yes.
He said to them, it's not important that we are capturing with a red or white cat that mice. It's not important. What's important is to achieve that objective. So he mentioned that both the market and the planning are only tools for maintaining macroeconomic objectives. So this is, I think, a good idea. So it is not important what is the system is the future, but what's important is do your system is working very well and efficient to maintain your macroeconomic objectives.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very sorry because we are already run short of time, and the program is very hot. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour or so. We hope to meet again with both gentlemen so that we can continue on this hot, important issue. Thank you. Bye.
You are welcome.